All right, we're going to review the toolbar in GIMP and explore what some of these tools do and how you use them with a photograph. I'm going to open up a picture here. Whoa. And it's too big, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to zoom out and try to get it on one screen here. You can use the minus key and the plus key to simply shrink and zoom in on your photo. So I've got the photo now zoomed out enough to where you can see it on the screen. The thing that you need to keep in mind here, as I mentioned in the overview, that we will be dealing with layers. And layers, like I said earlier, think of the transparent sheets of acetone that animators used once upon a time to create characters, cartoon characters. And you'd have the body, the torso, the legs, the tail, the head, the feet, all on different layers. And that would save the animators from having to redraw the entire character, and it would allow you to preserve the positioning and the framing of the character without having to redraw it in its entirety. So rather than drawing Mickey Mouse again, you would simply take out the layer that contained his arm and put in a new one to make him wave. And that's a lot like what you've got here in any of the photo image editors, whether it's Photoshop, GIMP, whatever. You have layers, and if you look over here on the right side of the screen, right up here in this tab, right here, I'm going to come off of it and bring it back. Right there, you'll see layers. This is the layers tab, and we'll be working with this. I want this to be visible throughout this demonstration of the tools. But you'll notice as we make different layers, the layers will grow over here, and the manipulation and edits that we do will be done to different layers, different parts of our composite image here. One thing that I highly recommend that you do every time when you're working with a photo is to always go ahead. I'm going to redo that here. Right click, and I like to duplicate the base layer. So now I have two layers. I have a layer here and a layer here. Some people like to create a new layer based on a color and then have that on as the background color. You can do that too if you like. If you want to do that, you can simply come down here and click Add a New Layer. A new layer window will pop up, and here it is. And I just want to I'm going to call it white, and you can rename all of your layers. And I'll show you how to do that. And I'm just going to have a white background, and I say OK. And now I've got, notice what happened here. This is a great way to demonstrate how layers work. If you look over here on the layer palette, I have three layers. I have a white layer. I have an image layer here. I'm going to rename that, and I'm just going to right click on that, double click on it actually. I'm going to double click on it, and I'm going to call that original, and I'm going to double click on clicking, and what I'm doing is I'm double clicking on the file name, and I'm going to call that copy. And for some reason that didn't keep. I'm going to call that original. So now I've got three layers here. I've got the white background, I've got the copy background, and I have the original background. You can't see anything here because the white background is on the top. If I want to make the others visible, there's a number of things I could do. I could drag it down here. I can just grab it with my mouse and I could drag it down. I can also just use the down arrow key here, and watch what happens. It moves it down a layer, and it will then be sandwiched between the copy and the original. So now what I'm looking at out here is the copy. there is a white layer between it. And so if I were to hide, and here's some eyes here, if you click on the eye to close it, you don't see that layer anymore. It becomes invisible. So now what I'm looking at is the white layer sitting on top of the original. Now if I were to hide the white layer and click on the eyeball, I have the original, and the original is what I'm viewing. One of the things that you have to keep in mind is you have to be aware of which layer you're working on. So if I'm wanting to add something to my white layer, I have to be on that white layer. If I want to add or do something to my copy layer, I have to be on that copy layer. Now the copy layer is not visible, so I have to make that visible before I can do anything to it. Right now the copy layer is visible. I have two layers beneath it, a white layer and a copy or the original image. But for the sake of this demonstration, I want to go ahead and put this white on the bottom, and I'll just move that down one more time. So now I have the white, the original, and the copy. I'm going to be editing the copy section here and demonstrating these tools right over here on the right. The first tool is the rectangle selection tool. In fact, the first 7 tools are selection tools. Selection tools are merely ways of selecting part of the image. The first 2 are standard shapes. You got a rectangle and an ellipses here. And notice when I hover over that, it says rectangle select tool, select a rectangular region. Notice the hotkey is visible, and that's R. I mentioned in the last one, the last tutorial, that the hotkeys are important because it can save you a lot of time. Notice when I'm over here working on this image, if I simply press the R key, watch how the rectangle button becomes selected. There it is selected. I'm going to press the E key for the ellipses, and it's there. You can learn these, and I highly recommend that you learn them. You can learn them while working in the program itself. You can also learn them by studying the hotkey/shortcut file located in the contents section of this course. But I'm going to now demonstrate how you make selections using these different selection tools, these first 7 buttons. There's the rectangle selection, so if I select a part of this image now, I actually was on the ellipses selection, I now have on this copy layer, I have an oval selection of that image. Now I can do whatever I want with that selection. If I just want to work within the selection, I can do that. If I want to copy this selection, I can do that. If I do copy, and I'm going to use the shortcut Control C, and then I paste it using Control V, notice what happens. I have a layer up here that is a pasted layer. And now I have a selection here of that layer. See, there it is. So anywhere I take it now, I have a copy of that layer. So I'm going to hide that because I don't need that anymore. But I have a selection of that base. So I'm going to go ahead and delete that layer just because I'm going to try to keep this as clean as I can. So I'm back to my 3 tiles. So if I wanted to use the rectangular tool, I can make a rectangle selection. If I want to use the ellipses tool, I want to come down here and I just want to grab this guy's head, or roughly grab it, I can just grab that. If I want to use the next tool, it's called the free select tool. In Photoshop, that's called the lasso tool. But the free select tool kind of lets you just draw using your cursor what you want. And so you're not limited by a standard shape. You can select that way. And so now I have selection tools. The next selection tool is the fuzzy select tool, or the wand tool in Photoshop as it's called. You can use this fuzzy select tool and it's going to grab everything within that area. So if I try to grab this number, this white area of number 7, I can click there and notice that it grabs some of it. The reason being is that the threshold or the tolerance is pretty low. I've got 15 over here. If I increase the threshold and I just slide that over, and a nice safe threshold is in the 30 range. I'm going to go to about 35. Now if I select it again, the same area, watch how it selects more because I've increased the threshold. It will select more of this number 7. See? Look at that. Now I've got almost all of it. There's still a couple of little areas there that I don't have, and I can come back and grab those if I want to get these little parts here. I can add those in. But you modify your threshold to make selections. The next selection tool is by color, and again it's going to have that same threshold, and I've got the color selection tool up here, and notice the hotkey is Shift O for that, and there's several different modes here. The mode that I'm in right now is just selecting the current selection, adding all of these different modes here. The threshold for the color selection works the same way as the wand or the free tool right here that we just demoed. If I'm using the color tool, and this time I'm going to grab the sky up here, and I click it, notice that it grabbed all of the sky. It went across the picture. If I grab the white here, notice what happens. It's not just grabbing the white in this area. See, the white in this area is restricted by that gold border on this number 7 when I use the free tool. So if I go back to the free tool and select it, notice I get the 7 inside this area. It stops when it gets to that gold outer edge of the 7. But when I use this color select tool, it will grab all colors in that range within this threshold. So right now I'm going to grab this light blue, or actually I'll grab the 7 here, and it grabs everything that is close within 15 points of this color range. That's why it grabs some things up here. It grabs some parts of the sleeve. It even grabbed the sky, because the sky and this part of the 7 are within 15 points of the same range. The scissor select tool selects shapes using intelligent edge fitting. So what this does is this selects areas based on edges. So if I select my scissors tool, and notice that the hotkey for that is I. If I come over here now with the scissors tool and I select I'm trying to grab an image here. Let me deselect because it makes it a little harder to see. Okay, let me show you that again. The image or the scissor tool is kind of like a pair of scissors, and you want to use the point of your cursor, and it's going to automatically lock into a contrasting edge. So what I'm going to do here with the scissors tool is I'm going to select this number 7 with the gold border, and if I just start somewhere out here on the 7, notice that it's grabbing a hold of that edge, and I'm just kind of cutting out a shape here. I'm just clicking randomly wherever I see that line in the 7 break, and it's grabbing the edges. And so now I have the number 7 created, or selected, I should say. So that's how you grab or use the scissors tool. So now I've got the number 7. The next tool over is the foreground selection tool, and that's going to grab things in the foreground. So if I click the foreground selection tool, notice what it's doing is it's in Photoshop this is called a mask, and what it's doing is it's using this area that I've painted here, and it's grabbing that area and copying it. And notice when I paint an area or mask an area in Photoshop is what it's called, it will make a selection based on that. All right. I think I'm going to stop this clip here just because we're running out of time and I don't want to have an extensive video clip that is restricted on YouTube. But what I do want to point out one other thing while I've got you in here. We've been working with the layers mode visible throughout this entire tutorial. Over here on this tab right here, if you come over 3 more tabs to the right, you'll see a history tab. If you click on the history tab, you will see a stage for every action we have completed since opening this. We can come back to this at any point, and we can revert back to that point in this picture's history. So if I want to go back to the time when I made a rectangular selection, I can go back to there and I can say undo all of the stuff after that, and I say clear it, and now I'm back to that. So that's how you use the history tool. All right, that's going to conclude part 1 of the toolbar. In the next section, we're going to get into the paths and color pickers and some of this basic manipulation. It'll go by a lot quicker than the selections tool. So we'll try to wrap up the toolbar orientation in the next video if at all possible. Thank you.